I want to talk about something slightly different. Using the Iranian culture to get what we want. I lived through the Iranian Revolution in a city called Mashhad. I was going in 1978 to a university there, so it was the beginning and the mid stages there. And you saw a lot of things then, and you see a lot of things today. There's similarities, there are differences. The goal here is to use Iranian culture, which is very, very different from ours here in the West, to accomplish the goals that we want. I think it's important to remember we are not opposed to the Iranian people. The Jewish people especially have a long, long history of good relations with the Iranian people. This goes back to Cyrus. He was the one who allowed the Jewish people to return with Ezra and Nehemiah to rebuild our ancient homeland here. Our enemy isn't the people. Our enemy, if you wish, in the West is the regime. And it is extremely important that when we talk about Iran, that we talk in terms of the regime. Now, let me give you how Iranian culture works on this, and maybe some ways that we could use this. When I went to university in 1978, I'm a nice American 28-year-old Jewish boy, and and I was there to study Shiism. How do Shiites think about the world? In Shiism, there are grand ayatollahs. You've all heard about ayatollah this and ayatollah that. And ayatollahs, what a Shiite is supposed to do is to look to one of the grand ayatollahs for guidance of how to live his life and to support financially. Every Shiite is supposed to do this. Every Shiite family, and you as a member of the family, do what your family does. If that be the case, here I am in Mashhad, which is where the seventh Imam, the seventh descendant of the Muslim Prophet Muhammad, is buried. You would assume that and it's a religious university, you would assume that the people would know the answers to that question. Now, we were living under the Shah, and maybe they were afraid. So what happened was as follows. I would ask people, and who is the grand ayatollah that your family follows? A normal question. After all, that's what the books tell us, you're supposed to have one. And they all looked at me like, what? And every once in a while, they would mention the name of one of the 6 grand ayatollahs, Shariat Madori, who was the grandest of the grandest at the time, and believed in the classical Shiite view of the world, and that is, we clerics are not allowed to rule. Khomeini and everything we're seeing today is opposed to classic Shiism. 98% of Shiite, shall we say, philosophy, view of the world, supports what I'm saying, and Khomeini was an aberration. So when I was getting these answers that they didn't know, how was this possible? It's a religious university, it's a religious school. So I began to list, I knew the names of these people. So what happens? They looked at me again with blank stares. All of a sudden, with time, shall we say, the revolution started. What does that mean? It means that students were breaking windows, they were doing all sorts of things, my fellow students. And things were moving, and the Shah and his people were not putting things down. Now watch this, because this is very important. As probably the greatest Middle Eastern historian alive, Professor Bernard Lewis says, the Middle Easterner is always looking for the bandwagon in the traffic jam so he can jump on and be with the winner. Now, all of a sudden, as things were happening, and Khomeini was beginning to talk publicly, Khomeini is saying all sorts of things. The Shah is not reacting to this. My fellow students who didn't know who clearly, as you will see, didn't have any idea who Khomeini was, were yelling, death to the Shah, long live Khomeini. Why? They saw a new bandwagon. The Shah and the Shah, that was President Carter in the United States, were abandoning him. And so they were looking for where the power was. Remember, they have to end up with the winner. Why do they have to end up with the winner? Because otherwise, since it's not a country of law, none of these countries in the Middle East are run by laws, It's all people who are in power. You got to be with the winner or you could suffer. So, and what had happened is, when I was mentioning before, I listed the names of the grand ayatollahs, and I had mentioned among them a guy named Khomeini, about whom I knew very little. So all of a sudden, my fellow students who supposedly knew nothing are yelling, "Death to the Shah, long live Khomeini." I'm mad. As a typical American, I don't like to be lied to. They lied to me, or so I thought. And then all of a sudden, they contact me and say, "Harold, who is Khomeini?" They saw power shifting. They didn't know who he was, so I wasn't being lied to. Another story along the same way. A family that I knew in Tehran had pictures of themselves when I was there in 1978 on the walls. Pictures of themselves with the Iranian royal family, with the Shah and his family members. They stayed after the revolution. A friend of mine in 1985, 6 years after the revolution, comes to visit them. And from America, I said, go to have dinner with them and look at the pictures on the wall, because I was amazed that they stayed. What does my friend see? Pictures of these same people with mullahs on the wall. She asks the question, "No, what's this all about?" And they start to laugh, and they say, "When you go back, tell Harold that the pictures that you see on the wall now in 1985 were in a very safe hiding place. And tell him also that the pictures that he remembers are on the wall are in that very same hiding place." So you see, it's really what they're doing is looking for power. What are we seeing today? And I'll tell you, and this is a huge difference because communications is simply fantastic. The subtleties. Iran is a very subtle culture. They're not direct. And the things that I would worry about if I were Israel here is that you're not going to have an Iranian attack, I don't think. My PhD is in history. It's not I'm not a prophet. But it would seem to me in an Iranians use indirect methods to get things done. They use people that help them where there's no Iranian fingerprints. At least that's what they try. Now, what you see is in the earlier parts of, I'm going to call this the revolution in process, because I do believe that that's what we're witnessing. What are they yelling? Death to the dictator. May I ask you, who's the dictator? Is it Khomeini? Is it Ahmadinejad? Who is it? It's not clear. What we have seen in the demonstrations as they move on is it's no longer as subtle. They're yelling and writing, "Death to Khomeini." That's the supreme guide. He's just called the leader. And then another one of their fabulous chants, Khomeini qatele. Khomeini is a killer. Velayatesh batele. And therefore, since he's a killer, his rule as a jurisprudent, his rule as the leader is mivutal bi'ivrit. Batel in Arabic, it's the same word in Arabic as in Persian. One other thing, you want to know what they think about us here, maybe I would say in the West? One of the chants of that you're hearing now today is Obama. Obama means O in Persian is he, Ba is with, Ma is us. The Iranian regime tried to sell it to their people that in the election, don't worry, we're going to stay in power. There's nothing you can do because he is with us. So what happens? They're yelling. This is all going to sound Obama, Obama, Yabama, either with us, Yaba onha, or with them. Who are you with? The people who want freedom, who want to join the world, who don't want to be humiliated anymore like we Iranians have been in the past. Where are you, President Obama? Are you on the side of the people? Are you on the side of freedom? Or are you on the side of tyranny? Since I'm mentioning Obama, you remember he gave this speech in Cairo, which there are many, many things you could say about the speech. But the thing which applies most to the Iranians is that about 3 weeks after the speech, there was a luncheon in Washington, D.C., and some of the State Department people who were involved in writing the speech, who were so excited about it, asked this Iranian scholar, what did the Iranian people see think about the speech. And the Iranians said, well, we Iranians didn't think it was directed at us because we see ourselves as Iranians, not part of the Muslim world. Let me go on with signs of where we are today, just a few things you could see, and we'll give you an insight into what is going on, I think, in Iran. The mullahs, most of the mullahs hate this regime because it is destroying Islam. They want nothing better than to get back to the mosques because the young people are doing, let's say, some rather un-Islamic things. So there's a huge fight. Most of them simply want the classic view of Shiism, get back to the mosques. When Iranians talk directly, when they threaten things, be careful. In the Middle East, when you talk, it means there's not much action behind them. And when Ahmadinejad, if you remember before the February 11th demonstration, said there's going to be huge problems that the Iranians are going to make in the foreign world, or outside Iran. What happened? Zero, nothing. Watch out when people make threats. Watch out, what really means, watch out, hold me back, or I'll kill him, means watch out, hold me back, or he'll kill me. That's how they think. Right now, what is happening to the money, the middle class? The middle class is trying to get out of the country. That's what happened in 1978. The mullahs and the middle class are sending their money abroad. These are signals that they expect trouble. That's how the Iranians are reading them. What is the role of the United States and Israel here? Outside actors. Let's say there's an attack, a military attack. What's the military attack mean? Again, Iranian subtleties. When the United States was bombing Afghanistan, the Iranians were holding up placards or something, big signs. No, bomb us first. Put us out of our misery. I could go on and on and on. What does all this mean? The bottom line is the Iranian people have a proud history of 2,500 years, and they have been shamed by these terrorists who are ruling them. They want nothing more than to join the free world. Their passport was a respected passport when they traveled up until this regime took over. Iranians are humiliated all over the place now wherever they go, and they would love to be put out of their misery. God willing, that will happen. I hope that we think about these things. Those who are now involved with policy, which I, as of 2.5 weeks ago, am no longer part of the American government. I hope that my former colleagues and their colleagues here in Israel will do the same. Think about this, and this regime could be finished. Thank you.